Did Paul meet a brother of Jesus? I'll spoil the fun early on and tell you that the logic does not agree with the claim that Paul met a brother of Jesus named James. This is how the Bible passage of Galatians 1:19 has been interpreted by most scholars. As we discussed in the previous video, Galatians 1:19 is the hugely debated point. Most scholars conclude that the James, brother of the Lord, mentioned in that quote is the same James apostle mentioned in Galatians 2:9. The church has also historically run with this interpretation, and we now have this character called James the Just, a saint. Accordingly, he is said to be the person also named in Mark 6:3, and also the person mentioned by Josephus to have been martyred by stoning in Jerusalem. Hello and welcome to Mindless Musings. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep on the good work. The logic challenges this claim strongly, both looking at what Paul wrote, but even more so, at what Josephus wrote. But we'll save Josephus for a separate video. A logical analysis of the biblical text suggests that this is a different James and that the term brother of the Lord may not have referred to a biological brother or family relation. Now, using the argument of mythicists as a foundation, I will show three things. 1. That James Beal, short for brother of the Lord, is not the same as James Apostle. 2. That James Ball, even if not James Apostle, is not also an apostle. 3. That brother of the Lord is not a biological term, but a role title position in the early church. This is how I argue for the first. This appears to be the easiest argument. To recap, Paul writes in Galatians 1:19, "Of the other apostles, I met none except James, brother of the Lord." First, Paul mentions James about 4 times in all. On 3 occasions, he did not qualify him directly. We only know James is an apostle from Paul's description of his role, or those associated with him. So, why does Paul now qualify James as brother of the Lord for no apparent reason, unless he is talking about a different James? Secondly, it would make no sense for Paul to write so dismissively of having met James that he calls a leader or pillar of the church in Galatians 2:9. In Galatians 1, Paul had gone to Jerusalem 3 years after his conversion to validate his authority from the apostles. He spent 15 days with Peter, and he makes much of this. If Paul had also met James the apostle, he would certainly have talked about it. Or if for some reason, he saw James but could not speak with James, he would have also made this clear. The way that sentence reads, it is not clear what James added to Paul's visit. This would be ultra bizarre for Paul, who clearly was at pains, in various passages, to show he also had authority and was also an apostle. The argument for the second also answers the first question. The sentence appears a strange way for Paul to say he met 2 apostles, even in English, unless Paul was trying to make a point, which is not evident. It is clear we are looking at a translation issue. In fact, according to Richard Carrier, the New International Version of the King James Bible after expert committee reviews on the original Greek, translates this quote as, "I saw none of the other apostles, only James, the Lord's brother." This is clearly different in meaning and excludes James Bol, or brother of the Lord, from being an apostle. As Richard Carrier shows, another scholar, Trudinger, 1975, studying the original Greek comments that Paul used a complex form of the Greek in writing that sentence, when he could have used much simpler sentences to say he saw 2 apostles. Also, if Paul meant to say he saw another apostle, James Bol, but did not consult with him, as he should with an apostle, he would also have made that clear, because as the sentence stands, James Bol adds nothing to it. Trudinger asserts that it is more probable that Paul used that complex sentence for a different purpose, to exclude James Bol from being an apostle. Thus, Paul would be saying that he saw no other apostle, but he saw another Christian, James Bol. If this was what Paul meant, then the sentence makes more sense. Paul does not need to consult with James Bol or talk about their meeting. Furthermore, it appears Bol is a specific group and part of a hierarchy, as Paul points to them again, as an exemplar group in 1 Corinthians 9:5. Paul says, "Have we no right to take a Christian wife like the rest of the apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Peter?" Here, Paul separates BOLs from apostles, which lends credence to the claim that James mentioned in Galatians was indeed not an apostle. If BOL referred to the biological brothers or relations of Jesus, then none of them were apostles. Now Paul shows a hierarchy in this 1 Corinthians 9:5 passage, showing apostles as at the top, BOLs next. We know apostles are higher than BOLs because Peter is an apostle, as already confirmed by Paul, and he is one of the big three. So the question is, are BOLs actual brothers or relations of Jesus, or a group within the church? To answer that question, we read from the top of that chapter to understand what Paul is driving at. Paul says, "Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not the result of my work in the Lord?" 2. Even though I may not be an apostle to others, surely I am to you. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. 3. This is my defense to those who sit in judgment on me. 4. Don't we have the right to food and drink? 5. Don't we have the right to take a believing wife along with us, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? 6. Or is it only I and Barnabas who lack the right to not work for a living? Paul is trying to justify here that he deserves to be basically put on the payroll of the church for his labors. He is qualified enough, he argues. And not just for himself, but even if he decided to take a wife, that his family should be provided for by the church. He shows that this right is accorded the apostles and the BOLs. Paul is saying he is also an apostle. Now, did the BOLs earn this right just by being biological brothers of Jesus? Or did they earn this right due to the position they had attained in the church from their work? If the former, why is Paul mentioning them as an example in a narrative where he is showing he has earned this right by his works? And if the latter is the case, then why would they be a group known only by their biological connection to Jesus? When we look at this passage logically, therefore, we have to infer that Paul is associating himself by his work for the gospel to two other groups honored for their work for the gospel. He thinks he should be accorded the rights given to these others. It follows therefore that BOLs are likely to have been a title for a group in the early church rather than the biological brothers or relations of Jesus. As always, it's mindless musings. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.